हेलो, वेलकम टू हमारी स्ट्रीम का नाम है कवि सम्मेलन। और हमारे साथ हैं शातिर एक विनम्र कसाना। व्हाट्सअप विनम्र।
What's up, bro? I'm very privileged to be on your stream in this new poetry Samelaan, जो भी कुछ है जो हम करने वाले हैं. I have shitty lighting and I'm darker than I look, which is not the
हम्म,
case at all in real life. So I just want to point that out. बाकी
हम्म।
I wish poet was a verb, so I could say, "Chal, bro, let's poet."
Yeah. What is the verb for poet? For
It's usually let's do poetry or let's rhyme. I
Let's
think let's
write.
rhyme is a better one.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
So a quick shout out to chat. What's up, Anirudh? You are the first commenter. What's up, Ipsa? What's up, Saksha, Akash? Bro, did you share this on Instagram, by the way? Will we
I
see
did
your
not.
works here?
My apologies. I'll do that right away. ये
Cool.
भारी भारी जो मेरे से इसलिए हो गया because I was meditating before stream for 4 or 5 minutes to maintain my composure.
Bro, by the way,
कुत्ता OP.
another very interesting thing is
Hmm.
today is bicycle day, bro. तो
Oh
अब
yeah.
द्वितीय चक्र, one second, bro. What would I say? One sec, give me a sec. Um, आपको
Yeah, I could. मैं stream
द्विचक्र
की link भेज
वाहन
देता हूँ.
दिवस की शुभकामनाएं।
Bro, आप इसको केवल साइकिल ही कह सकते हैं, वो भी चलेगा. इतनी भारी poetry night with Shaatir. Let me just share this on my. Let me just copy link. एक second.
Yeah.
And मैं जरा एक बार post कर दूँ. By the way, you know that Albert Hoffman discovered a certain psychedelic while he was riding a bike.
And here we are today, bro. Here we are.
Here we are. So hold on, let me just write that down. Live stream with Abnux 2 because Abhinav Chikara is not Abnux 2.
या व्हाट्सअप एवरीवन, वेलकम टू टुडेज स्ट्रीम। आज आप देख सकते हैं हम ड्रेस कोड में भी आए हैं। हम दोनों ने ड्रेस कोड का पालन किया है क्योंकि आज हम पोएट्री के बारे में बात करने वाले हैं। वी आर गोइंग टू टॉक अबाउट द क्रिएटिव
Live है,
प्रोसेस
live है.
बिहाइंड पोएट्री।
Hmm.
we're going to be talking about we're going to be talking about some of Vinamre's projects. We're going to be talking about how Vinamre's been doing series on his Instagram over the past few weeks, and it's been super interesting. And what also got me interested in this is, out of all the creative forms out there, right? Like, I know a lot of designers, I know a lot of people who do graphic design, I know people who do music, right? I know almost no one somehow who does poetry, right?
Hmm.
And because of that, I haven't been able to explore what's it like with the creative process, like poetry as a medium. What's the depths of it? And hopefully, Shatir, bro, we're gonna get into that
Hmm.
today.
ठीक है ब्रो, आपके इतने बड़े बड़े सवालों को सुनकर मेरे कानों में बहुत प्रसन्नता हुई. पहली बात मैं ये बोलना चाहता हूँ, देखिए जो कविता है ना, वो कोई आसान काम तो नहीं है. ऐसा तो नहीं है कि एक बच्चा. आई एम जस्ट किडिंग ब्रो. इफ आई हैव टू रियली बी ऑनेस्ट विद यू, पोएट्री is a is the rapid documentation of an event or a feeling, because if you don't document it right away, it will go away.
Mm,
ठीक है. And when you think, you don't think in facts or linear information. You think in images. You think in description. You will never say, um, I'm seeing tall man, round shrubs, I'm feeling okay, right? You will often find a way to say that in a lyrical sentence in your head, even if you don't know it.
mm,
ठीक है. तो just documenting that is probably like the first attempt at an understanding की poetry है भी क्या.
mm. Very interesting, right? Because I feel like a lot of art does the purpose of a lot of art is how do you encapsulate a feeling and how do you transmit that feeling. In your experience, bro, when did you start writing poetry? What drew you to it?
I'll tell you, I think there is this poem called Pablo Neruda की poem. I think I sent it to you as well.
Mm,
It is something, उसका जो theme है, it's about stopping to take a moment to see what's around you. I'm trying to attribute this specific poem to showcase a story कि इस वजह से मैंने poems लिखनी शुरू करी, but that's the most significant event I can remember. When
Mm.
I read this poem, I felt like there is a way to capture reality that I'm interested in.
Mm.
That's how I started, and I started, I think, roughly at the age whenever this is available in NCRT. So this would be either sixth grade or seventh grade, right?
Mm.
Um, but what is interesting about poetry is that when you read it, if you are not a very visual person, the first thing it does is it forces you to think imaginally.
Mm.
मतलब क्या बोलते what's the right word, imagistically, right? Even if you're
Yes.
not seeing a visual,
Mm.
because if you describe something, you're forced to imagine ki, tall ships at sea, what does that look like, what does that feel like? If you have not watched any pop culture movies such as Pirates of the Caribbean, right, you will probably have, the only memory you have of that is whatever you saw as an illustration in the English book.
Yeah.
So I think it allows you to then take flights of fancy, and I've been taking those flights of fancy for I don't know how many years now, very intuitively, very privately.
Mm.
It's only recently in 2021, a couple of months ago, that I started being serious about it, because I think a lot of skill has now met pure curiosity. So
Mm.
yeah, that's what I would say.
But yeah, bro. You know what we're gonna do? Let's jump into your Instagram, bro.
Hmm.
Actually, wanna
Okay,
talk
let's do
about
it.
some of these. Okay.
Fuck yeah.
Let me.
By the way, I'm super humbled that we're doing this. Like, this is probably my favorite stream, because this is
Mm.
the one art form that I love the most. That I don't feel like मैं काम कर रहा हूँ. Like, videos also feel a bit work like to me, even writing blog posts or tweets. But this, I can do this all day, every day.
Mm.
Hmm.
Let us. Okay, bro. Here we go.
Hmm.
Folks, we are on Shaatir stream. We've got 4201 followers. Hopefully that number jumps as we're in the stream. But Shaatir,
Thank you for the kind
bro,
audience.
yeah. Small plug here. Okay. Here's the link, by the way, to this video. Bro, I first saw your poetry very, like a couple of weeks back is when you, not
Hmm.
weeks, maybe it's a months now, but when you first
Right.
started, what's the kind of response you've received? When you first started, were people like, dude, were people confused? Were people taken aback? Um, were they just curious? Like, what was the response like?
तो अब मेरे पास क्योंकि छोटी मोटी ऑडियंस आ गई है यूट्यूब के माध्यम से, तो द रिस्पॉन्स इज अ लॉट बेटर रिसीव्ड
Hmm.
देन इट वाज व्हेन आई वाज राइटिंग पोएम्स इन 2014, 2013, 2015, right? Primarily in the year before college, and in the first and second years of college. At that time, only my family and friends knew me.
Hmm.
So उस time पे, first of all, I did not know how to really write, right? I would just have a thought और मैं ऐसे लिखना शुरू कर देता था, and for me that was poetry. For most people it was, but like it wasn't very accessible. It's only now that I have an audience that is dedicated to getting better at writing. I think that allows for a more, I don't know, a more in-depth look at a random poetry post that you would normally ignore. Okay,
Yeah.
I think that's working in my favor. But yeah, even now all the people who appreciate the poems just happen to be people who subscribe to my channel, right?
Hmm.
um, the only difference is I've changed in my skill, whereas before I would just not care about the accessibility to the poem. I care about that a lot right now. So I try to make my message, if I have a message, as simple and short as possible,
Hmm.
without reducing any amount of beauty or value जो मैं उसमें लाना चाहता हूँ.
Yeah. Yeah. Bro, which one would you say we start with? Let's read one, okay? Let's read one on stream.
Bro, let's go to the one on the extreme right, top pay.
Okay.
Is that the one? Let me see. I can't see properly.
I'll zoom
Not
out.
this one actually. Go back, go back, go back. This is
Hmm.
meh. ऐसी normal है.
Hmm.
Let's go to the one second row के अंदर bottom right पे. हाँ ये. Yes, this one.
Yeah, bro. You want to do a reading?
Sure, I'll have to squint my eyes, but I can try. Okay,
I'll zoom,
here.
bro. Huh.
I'm a bad reader of poetry because I have a very rapid speaking style, so I will try my best. But I'm
Yeah.
sure, bro, I really appreciate you having me read my poem. Take
Yeah.
me to Casablanca so I can sit in an old suit in an open air cafe, smoke cigarettes, and get drunk on cocktails in the day. Take me to Spain so I can marry architecture and bow to Gaudi. And then in Mexico, when I moved to tears on peyote listening to a mariachi. Then over in the American Deep South in a snake handling church, let me take strychnine to parallel my life at home. In Japan, I want to feel the slowness of tea on terrace and not obey customs and smile and feel embarrassed. In Patagonia, I want to trek after tragedy when I'm a wreck and forget all my life in my travels, see beauty unravel, and meet God.
Beautiful, bro. Beautiful. Awesome. Awesome. I love that, bro. You know what? You were just talking about
Hmm.
how it's so different when you used to write it before, and
Hmm.
now you've got your YouTube audience who's sort of interested in this, right? I find that
Right.
super, super interesting because it's almost like it's adding this layer on top of the poetry, which is your audience has some mental image of who Shaatir is. They've seen your videos, and most of that mental image is um, from your video personality, your podcast
Sure.
personality. And I think what's so interesting about this is they get to see the side of Vinamra, which firstly, they didn't know. And then now, secondly, it's in a format that is new to them because like, I don't think we have too many average poetry enjoyers, do we?
Ha, yaar. Or if they are, I think it's mostly slam poetry. What do you
Hmm.
think about slam poetry?
What
Have
is slam
you
poetry
ever been?
exactly? Like,
So, so slam poetry is akin to rap, but it's not exactly rap. ठीक है? You will write lines that are generally rhyming, but you will say it in a choppy manner and you will try to say it in one breath.
hmm,
That you're trying to animate the emotion you've written about.
hmm,
ठीक है? So the horrible poetry slams that I attended when I was first starting out, when I figured out कि ऐसे दिल्ली के अंदर poetry slam circuit भी है, the sort of poems I was writing back then, dense in the English language, tough to really speak, right? They were not very speaker friendly.
hmm,
So poetry slam poems are very simple and rely on very simple rhyme schemes that you can say, I was bored, I was depressed, then he got me stressed, and then I was unraveling, and then I was in a mess, and I need to breathe. Essay. They go through
hmm.
crescendos. That's how slam poems work.
I have, bro. I mean, the reason I asked is because I don't know exactly what they are, but
Hmm.
multiple occasions, different events. I think slam poetry is one of those. There is a certain performance art aspect to it, unlike maybe this,
Correct.
right? This you're transmitting this over visuals on Instagram, which is a whole different, let's say, medium of consumption compared to
Hmm.
you're on stage. People are looking at you. They're projecting what they think of you when you're on stage. I feel, and then
Hmm.
when you start reading it, you take them through this performative narrative. I think that's quite interesting.
Ha. So, an addition to that is, I always felt like when writers write novels, they write it in isolation.
Mm,
ठीक है? The only person who workshops their writing is their editor or trusted friends who are writers, right? But then I saw the author of Fight Club and this other guy, David Sedaris, who's an American humorist. Both talk about the importance of workshopping your stories. Hello, am I audible?
yes, yes. Go for it.
Hmm. They both talked about workshopping their stories. What that means is ki after you've written the words down literally, you go and narrate them in front of an audience. While a stand-up comedian looks for laughs and dead silence, you are generally looking for people listening with bated breath. कोई ज़्यादा हिलडुल नहीं रहा, right? You're looking for a rapt audience. You're looking कि कहाँ पे plot के अंदर जाके there is a break where people go like, or they go like, haha, that was too funny, whatever, right? Different
Mm,
emotions. So they found that if you workshop the written word for an oral for an audio audience, for an oral audience, it makes both the story memorable to speak and to read.
mm,
Okay, because you cover both ends, which I found very interesting. So another experiment that I might try is try to workshop new poems and see how people respond to. One of the problems with speaking a poem like the one I've written is if you look at the complexity of some of the words or the images, if I go to an average Indian performance space and speak some of them, I will have lost my audience at Gaudi or Piote or stricken in, right? These make for great reading imagery, but when you speak about it,
mm,
it has to be crystal clear. So उस sense के अंदर you have to sort of go back to the basics a lot, especially when you are talking about an audience that has English as their second language. That's what I
mm.
saw at the poetry slams. So really bare bones simplicity works.
Yeah. Bro, we'll talk about this. We'll talk about the accessibility of this. We'll talk about rap also. Okay? I want to get into that. But before that, the thing that you touched upon about this idea of workshopping. We've actually had, you and I, through our different episodes all over the internet, we've talked about this one common thing, which is, should creators focus on their craft or should they build their audience? Because sometimes it feels like two different things. It feels like on one hand you're doing it in isolation, so maybe you don't get that feedback. But then, bro, we don't always need that feedback. Sometimes you just got to be with yourself. And I remember us talking about it, and that's like a recurring thought that I think you've had. Tell me more, bro. What do you feel about that right now?
Yeah, I at least with poetry, I have to reconsider. Kyunki, like there is something about the knowledge of having done whatever degree of YouTube to figure out the natural role that a broadcaster can occupy that a poet would not, because of our sheer pride, arrogance, or just the attachment to the self-image that I'm a poet and hence I will not bow down or conform to the platform, right? All of those things. So having sort of apprenticed myself and trying to apprentice myself to the YouTube form has allowed me to break that barrier कि हाँ poem लिखता तो मैं isolation के अंदर ही हूँ, right? But as I'm writing the poem, if I do ever edit it, right, there is always this intent कि I now know who I'm writing it for. ठीक है? Maybe I don't have a profile. ठीक है? कि it's this 18-year-old kid in Ahmedabad या ऐसा कुछ है. And if I'm being honest, like 1 degree और अगर उसका layer उतारो तो mostly I'm just writing to convey a thought that I have, but I'm able to now point the graph just slightly tip uska upper so that it opens up to the universal, that you can access it, someone else can access it. It's no longer this private glory that I need to have about wow मैंने एक poem लिख ली. So in this sense, building in public, especially, kudos to you. You suggested कि one way to really test your, because as creators we're like athletes, we can do a lot of reps. We should never feel like we're out of poems. So using the constraint of number one, building in public or writing in public, quite literally, just अंदर हर रोज एक एक poem आ रही है, seeing the response and sticking to the theme nonetheless, and having people expect that from me, I think that's a great thing. And I do not know how the poets of yesteryears did it, but there is definitely a way to integrate the internet with that. And I'm a very small example of that. There are greater poets, I'm sure.
I mean, as research for this episode, I was watching some Kavi Samelans, like quite literally, right? Not all the way through, but I was doing my
Right.
research, right? Just to understand what is Kavi Samelan, because I didn't want to use that term just like loosely. And what I found was, it seems like the Desi equivalent of stand-up shows. Like most of the videos that I came across, they do really well, by the way, on YouTube. However, what I came
They
across
do.
was, it was like this kind of banner that you have in the background where you're facilitating your chief guests or whatever. The speaker, he requests कि, हम इसको, हाँ, अब विनम्र कसाना जी आने वाले हैं, अपने हाथ जोड़िए और समर्पण और श्रद्धा से इनका स्वागत करते हैं.
Sambodhit karna is felicitation, and Sambodhan are like standards to this.
And there was a certain way of doing it. And then beyond that, I mean, the way they would say it is that, hey, you are here, you don't know what the experience is going to be, but now this person who's coming on stage, they are now going to, the next couple of minutes, we're going to spend those minutes together. So I almost feel like we have that culture here, which is, it's almost like open mics, right? These Kavi Sammelans. It is this kind of entertainment category that exists. And so maybe today poets, neo poets like you using the internet to get this feedback loop. But I feel like maybe back in the day, it was more of these small clubs, events, things like that.
So this culture still exists. There is a Faridabad poet called Dinesh Raghuvansi, and he's a friend of my dad. He knows my dad, and if you look up his videos on YouTube, you will find the entirety of North India's Gen X at these events. ठीक है, वो थोड़ा देवडी के अंदर से इमोशनल अत्याचार वाला बैंड होता है ना वो पूरा. हैव यू सीन दैट?
Yes, yes.
Right, so there is slightly that aesthetic. The Rangmanch has a red carpet with flowers on it. That specific carpet that signifies you're at a non-internet event, if I were to put it very straightforward. और फिर उसके बाद ये होता है, there is, so what I find interesting about the Kavi Sammelan is, in fact I was reading this book, Nomadic Narratives, by Tanuja Kothiyal, who's an Indian history professor. She also teaches at Ambedkar University, and she was saying कि so many of the bards होते हैं ना, जो कविताएं या poems या sonnets लिखते हैं for kings and all. So a lot of the poems that we know that come from Rajasthan, talking about the might of the Rajputs or how the land is full of famine, some of them were commissioned by patrons, right? So in a way, these सम्मेलन्स, whenever they say कि हमारे सामने अमिताभ बच्चन जी भी बैठे हैं, अमर सिंह जी भी बैठे हैं, right? While the event is not explicitly organized by these guys, they temporarily appoint patrons, right? And then speak. मतलब basically the संबोधन or the felicitation is done in a way so that you come enjoy the poetry as if it is written for you. There is a lot of that there as well.
Yeah, and I like the whole system around it, which is it's there's a lot there, which is it's not like the vibe setting that happens really adds to the poetry by itself. And it's not just a mic and you come on stage and speak. It's not it's not a bar, for example. It's this vibe that's been set by the interiors of the place, the dress code of the place, the banners that you have, the lights. It's a whole event. Yeah.
Yeah, so more about this guy Dinesh Raghuvanshi, जो ये event वाली बात है ना, और how you're able to curate it so that it becomes maximally impactful, कि जितने लोग हैं वो सब बोले वाह मजा आ गया, right? With the stand-up comedy show that is happening in the background where you're eating, or with the guitarist playing while you're eating in the restaurant, it's a sort of different vibe. You can tune in when you want to. Okay? The reason they are immersive experiences is because I sort of thought about it, is the themes. These poets will pick up the most mainstream theme possible, which will have the biggest impact possible. So let us take an example. One example is माँ के ऊपर poetry. ठीक है? Everyone can understand कि there is a natural appreciation for mothers in India, elsewhere also in the world, right? Universally. So के ऊपर दिनेश रघुवंशी पोएम बताता है, वो कहता है कि जिसको पालने में पाला वो आज मुझे आंखें दिखाता है, you know. And when that hits you, bro, it's very visceral. It's like saying, your son has become this asshole. He's or grown up, whatever. But you love him nonetheless. That emotion, all the men out there who are sitting, जो अपनी मम्मी को ज़्यादा कुछ समझते नहीं हैं, या all the men who feel like they've lost their innocence, everyone in that crowd can resonate with it. Why? Because everyone has had a mother, right? That's how they were born. So they are willing to take these universal themes and write around it and then sing around it, that new poets cannot, that they would not, right?
Yeah, for sure, bro. I mean, I love the phrase we've coined, neo poets. Okay, I think there's something to that. The reason, I mean, the direction I'm also going with this, the same way that to help people visualize, let me quickly show you all what we're talking about when we say Kavi Sammelan. Just opened up this Dinesh Raghuvanshi. Yo, look at the stream setup, bro. It's no joke.
Yes.
Right? It's different from what we're used to.
कवि सम्मेलन और मुशायरे की लेटेस्ट वीडियो देखने के लिए आप नमोकार चैनल को
Let me show a little bit of the stage.
ये मेले, ये संभावना, ये तमाम मुहूर्त, ये तमाम खुशियां सब किसानों की, जवानों की वजह से हैं. देश का अन्नदाता थोड़ा परेशान है इस वक्त. मेरा मन है मैं 4-5 मुक्तक देश के लिए और किसानों के लिए पढ़ दूं. यदि आप
So what I find also very interesting here is the way it's not just about the poem itself. There's the poem, there's the delivery, and then there's all of these layers on top, which is your audience, your backdrop, and all of this. I feel like neo poets, for example, have this opportunity to really set the standard of what it's like to be a poet on the internet. Because and the reason I'm also talking about this is when I look at your post, right? Now, of course, we all know, right? I'm sure you get a lot of this rupee kaur, right?
Right.
The thing is, most people are used to that, right? So nothing against her, whatever, bro. I have no opinions. But I think the format that she was able to come up with, right, was
Was
something
new.
which people very resonated with. However, I think a lot of people don't realize that, hey, with poems online, it's not that we have this one format. This is one of the formats that
It's the
has
most
worked.
popular one. That's all.
Yeah, it's just the most popular. But in the future, or even today, there's probably hundreds of similar rupee core type formats, which one of them is going to blow up, right? So I feel what you're doing here, right? So number one, you've got your theme, right? These are all on travel. You've got these which are on women. These, I guess, no specific
Were
theme, or
spontaneous before I had the idea after talking to you. These were just my
yeah.
standard phone की app notes वाली app का screenshot है. That's it.
I think what you're doing basically is you are doing some kind of multimedia storytelling, which is it's not it's not just the poem that's giving me that experience, but it's also I get to see what other people are saying, right? I'm not only seeing
Right.
the poem itself, but I'm now seeing the reactions of people. So I would say, dude, it's a very interesting art form to me. That's just what I'm thinking.
Yeah, you would be super interested in. एक तो I have a couple of tangents to take from there, if you would allow me. Number one is when we were talking about ये जो कवि सम्मेलन है. यार, पता है, if you remember Atal Bihari Vajpayee, who was a PM of India, right,
Yeah.
in the 90s and maybe in the early 2000s. Forgive my knowledge of history, but do you know he was a poet?
No, I sort of
So
do.
he was a
Sort
poet.
of do. Yes.
He wrote, right, which translated to him becoming an orator, which translated to him also having a national conscience, which made him a great politician who could rouse the nation and rally behind his calls and really see the poetic beauty of what is very difficult to see now with poetry going away from the national conversation. Okay? So in some, without paying too much tribute and making Dinesh Raghuvansi sound like he's the OG or something, he still represents that last generation of poets who are willing to confront social issues by addressing everyone. Modern poets, and again, broad brushstroke, will not address everyone. There is something about the political culture of India. मेरे किसान भाई मंच पे विराजमान जितने भी सारे सदस्य हैं जिनकी वजह से ये कार्यक्रम हो पाया, उन सभी को मेरा कोटि कोटि प्रणाम. It's like the poet then has a duty, right, to address this audience who has come forth. Now, if he becomes too narcissistic and goes too much into मेरी जिंदगी में ये हुआ वो हुआ, right, the audience is going to lose interest. So he acts as a mediator between the social issues of the day and what he thinks उससे क्या art salvage हो सकता है, something like that.
That's true, bro. That's so true.
We
Let's talk
don't
about
have that.
accessibility, right? Let's talk about rap, actually.
Please.
I want to actually use this segue to get into rap. Bro, I feel this concept we talked about, that creators need to put in their reps. Very important one. Right? Very important one. Even for me, when I teach design, for example, I say, hey, this is your third app or your third this thing. It's not going to be good, right? You have to put in those reps, which eventually lets you build upon your previous knowledge. And now you start seeing patterns that weren't obvious before. So putting in reps, super important. With rap, how do you see, how do you interpret rap in India past couple of years, Gully Boy and everything? How do you interpret that, and how do you see that relation to poetry?
Okay. Well, if I were to again use broad brushstrokes, because I am a consumer of rap music, the only time I've taken part in the culture is when I'm drinking a couple of vodkas with my friends in a car, and the idea is to form a safe space to freestyle rap. So a couple of us will do it regularly, but then some newbies will come. Eventually, they will have the courage to say it, and sometimes very nasty shit comes out. That's my experience with performing rap. यार मेरे को ना with rap it is still like most I feel like most poetry comes from the unconscious things you don't know and then it suddenly comes to you. You're like, ah, interesting. With rap it's very possible to still make it very conscious. Maybe the way you perform it can be unconscious, maybe the lyrics you write can come from your unconscious, but uske beyond, like rappers are fundamentally poets, no doubt about it. But yeah, I'm out of my depth to speak more than that because I really don't know कि मैं उसके अंदर what technical things I can point out beyond the obvious rhymes.
Yeah.
जैसे तोड़ा फोड़ा मरोड़ा हथौड़ा, right? Like those are standard things I can comment on, but because I don't know, there are too many rappers who will get upset if I say something and I'm not even sure what I want to say around this.
So the reason I'm also asking is I'm making this prediction right here on this live channel. Within the next couple of months / years, Vinamre is going to become a rapper. Okay. Not, and that might conjure some images of whichever rapper you're like, bro, I can never be ASAP
Right.
Rocky. You're like, bro, मैं थोड़ी बनूंगा Kanye, bro. Like, or even talking about, let's say, Indian rappers. You're like, dude, I'm not gonna be like, I am not divine, for example. I am not that kind of person. Let's say. But the reason I'm also thinking, right, the sort of parallel I'm drawing is when you read the poem out, it was a certain kind of performance, and I found that more interesting than if I had read it myself.
Interesting.
Right? So that made me think that there is the performance aspect to it. And then, just like zooming further, what I started thinking was, you were talking about how when each of these paints this kind of mental picture. I wouldn't be surprised if you started making these poems at some point as spoken, and then you realize, hey, I can actually cut in a photo of me in Vietnam or whatever, and then you're like, hey, it's actually a multimedia piece. It's not poems anymore. It's this new thing. What do you think about that?
Bro, I have this idea on the stream. Matlab, it became cemented on this stream because when I read it in front of you, I felt confident. Yeah, I felt like it जिस तरह से मैं पढ़ना चाह रहा था. I've seen numerous people in my college classes, in literature classes, read poems like a dead bore. So I was able to do that. I think I will definitely do that. In fact, I tried that in 2016, made a couple of Snapchat stories with small poems. One of the poems I sent you, An American Prayer, are Jim Morrison's poems. Jim Morrison, who was the lead singer of The Doors, that he then recorded as spoken word, that his band then put music to, and as a result, that became spoken word poetry as I know it, with music, with blues music in the back. The other example is, oh, by the way, you wouldn't. So this the lyricism of how I was saying things, you can get that from Jack Kerouac, who's the master of that. So Jack Kerouac is the guy who wrote On the Road, one of the seminal figures in the beat movement that preceded the hippie movement, right? Bunch of writers in the USA. So this whole style of speaking breathless poetry in a way that it's very enunciated or maza aata sunne mein, came from him watching Bop. Bop is a kind of proto jazz where it's more chaotic, right? You have these spontaneous melodies, and agar trumpet wala ja raha hai to wo ja raha hai, and everyone's like, breathlessly following along, that sort of thing. So he said he wanted to be a jazz poet. So he got this friend, Steve Allen, to play jazz piano in the back as he speaks these poems. And not all of these poems rhyme, but they allow for you to stop when you must and go breathless when you should. It's almost like you're watching a film, a bunch of visuals. So I think I picked that up from those two people, Jack Kerouac and Jim Morrison. And I'm very surprised how in this moment I feel confident enough to do that. I've tried several times in the past, but it didn't work. So
Bro,
I'm very glad that this is happening here.
Let's read something, bro. What do you want to read?
अब यार ऐसे तो नहीं.
Bro, I have some more points to make. ठीक है? For that.
So I don't know if we can get copyright for this, but could you play October on the Railroad Earth, that poem? We can play like 15 seconds of it.
Yeah, sure.
है ना?
YouTube से?
तो हाँ, YouTube पे October in the Railroad Earth.
Let's do it, bro.
You'll see what I mean.
Hmm.
The first one, second one, जो चलानी वो चला दो.
Let me see if I can play one with the lyrics.
It's going to be hard to find the lyrics. You will have to play it in one tab and then have the lyrics come up.
Perfect. Let me do that.
There was a little alley in San Francisco, back of the Southern Pacific Station at 3rd and Townsend. In red brick of drowsy, lazy afternoons with everybody at work in offices. In the air you feel the impending rush of their commuter frenzy. As soon they'll be charging en masse for market and Sansom buildings on foot and in buses and all well-dressed through working man Frisco of walk-up truck drivers. And even the poor grime bemarked 3rd Street of lost bums, even Negroes so hopeless and long left east, and meanings of responsibility and try, that now all they do is stand there spitting in the broken glass, sometimes 50 in one afternoon against one wall at 3rd and Howard. It is all these Millbrae and San Carlos neat necktied producers and commuters of America and steel civilization rushing by with San Francisco Chronicles and green call bulletins, not even enough time to be disdainful.
You know what I also find
They've
really
got to catch
interesting?
130, 132,
You can pause it, huh?
Yeah, what's so interesting, bro, is when I read it, I
Don't read it. It's supposed to be listened to. है ना वो खत्म कर देती है उसको.
that's what मैं सोच रहा था कि when I saw it, I was like, dude, firstly, I couldn't predict when the pauses will happen,
हाँ.
and that adds to the experience. Because you can see
This
that
is a
enunciation,
top
you're like,
poem.
yeah,
हाँ bro, because I instantly when I read it, I was like कि मैं भी रोकता नहीं हूँ. It kills the experience. The whole reason it's an audio track is, bro, because when you listen with your eyes closed, you will really get there. This is a top poem that I make my friends listen to, no matter what their articulation level is या कितनी English आती है, when we're super drunk after a party, because it really, you really go there, you know, sitting in a car, having the speakers blast out to max with Jack Kerouac playing this, and then he's literally a jazz poet. He's going like na 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 like that. So for some reason, I find that far more interesting than rap, because you're using only your voice to have क्या कहते हैं जो भी rhyme है या फिर जो भी ऐसे crescendo हो रहा है without having a beat, right?
Interesting.
The beat
Yes.
isn't very bassy. It's only a piano playing in the background, and even that is a jazz piece. So it's two people soloing together, which is maybe not the same thing that happens in rap. I could be wrong.
So, you know, I see, of course, I know nothing about the technicalities of rap, right? About any of that stuff. So I'm not going to pretend that I do. But what this makes me think of is, so one thing with rap is it seems like there's a lot of common themes in rap that are talked about the most, right? For example, when you look at Mumbai rap, it's talking about the struggle. It's talking about this is where we were and this is where we are now.
Right.
You talk about Delhi rap, my feeling, it's a bit more on the flexing side of things.
Sure.
Right? You're talking about हमने ये किया, हमने वो किया, हम यहाँ से this thing. I sort of feel like the category you could really own is lo-fi hip-hop rap, right? Which is over there, it is about the jazzy tunes. There is a very low beat in the background. But then you're not doing this to get hyped up. You're not saying this to be like, bro, mere se panga kaun lega, bro. You're more like, it's 12 a.m. I'm just chilling. You know, I have work to do. I can't sleep. And now I don't want you flashing these violent images in my head.
Right. Yeah. I'm thinking about violent images only though, up next to. And the reason I say that is, there is a part of me that also feels like, so our bards or our poets have also talked about issues that matter, right? Or the experience. One thing that is very prevalent in Black poets is the experience of blackness.
Yes.
That is one thing that is carried throughout the ages. Since the first time they protested for civil rights. Uske baad, right? That experience of being Black. Even in India, there are Dalit poets who do the same thing, right? The poems do serve as like tools of social resistance. Maybe rap is more accessible now. But मुझे ऐसा लगता है, you know, because lo-fi would be cool and stuff, I still feel like maybe poets can occupy a third role, and this would probably take a little bit of time, is try to find a way to reincorporate the stories that already exist in India, but do it in a new fashion. Say folk stories, for example. One thing that I don't hear anymore is any songs about war, any songs around martiality, like being a martial, um, any songs that, or any poems that propel you to pick up your weapon and fight, or to, um, you know, for me, I feel like there needs to be a new set of poets that are able to codify values in poems, है ना? And then hope and try and run experiment ki do those poems make it down the, the, what is the rabbit hole, kya bolenge, the food chain, and the last person who receives it understands what the message is, and then you can maybe release a bunch of poems around that. Say like the warrior's ethos, what is that? And then incorporate stories of warriors in India in your poem, and make it accessible enough so that it becomes a new sort of song.
Yeah. Bro, this is also, I will also add this. It's so important that we do this because it sort of feels like there's nothing new under the sun. Everything that has to be, this is a quote, okay? I don't know, remember by who. There's nothing new under the sun. Everything that has to be said has been said. However, nobody was listening, so it needs to be said again.
I agree.
Right? And I think what that means is these themes, of course, they do represent a snapshot in time, right? It's a product of when it was written, but then these are themes that repeat across time. And I think those repetitions, we need neo poets to not just bring back interest, but sort of echoes those similar themes. It's like, hey, what you're feeling, this particular feeling, right, of being at home, for example. Now you have this thing going on. Everybody is feeling this, right? And there have been... So anyway, what I'm trying to say is it's very important that we do this. Yeah.
I was recently talking to a Gond artist. There are many tribes in India. One of them is the Gond tribe. I was at Delhi Heart trying to purchase a couple of art pieces for my studio, and so the Gond tribe is fascinating, but I do not exactly know where they're from. He was बहुत सारे लोग different paintings बेच रहे थे, right? They were the Madhubani paintings from Bihar. Then there were Gond paintings. Different artisans were selling paintings and artworks there, right? I bought a mandala piece that had, instead of standard, fractals, it had fishes that made up the mandala.
Wow,
And two people remarked that they look like sperms, but the piece is so great. It's only 1,200 rupees, and the meaning that I saw in it was so much. Ki mere ko lena pada. But then when I went to the Gond artist, he had these beautiful paintings of animals, and animals look very non-menacing. They almost look like spirits, happy spirits. Okay, but not in the sense of like they're cartoons. I can, maybe you can pull something up and I can show you.
Yeah, I'm just doing that right now.
But this is Gondar. This is exactly Gondar, right? And I was surprised by there is a sense of, DD national type ka aesthetic hai, bada simple, juvenile, sa happy India, happy animals type ka, right? But I asked him why. And he says, no one asked me why. They just buy the paintings that look pretty. And he told me entire story is about the Gond creation myth, what each animal represents. Okay? What the fish represents. Like when someone dies, they become a fish because fishes eat everything. Chote stories thi about how they see the world. The painting of a tiger signifies that when you see a tiger, you just humbly bow and it leaves you. If you pray to the deity, without getting too complex, my idea ye hai ki one way to access your culture is through art. The other is to access it through poems and folk songs, right? A third is to have those people on your podcast talking about that journey. Ki tumhara culture kaisa hai? What are your creation myths? What is it about your beliefs that makes you see the world differently? All of those things. But usse ye wali baat aati, like I was saying, war songs. I wish there were more folk songs that were accessible to us, that told us the story for peoples, whatever. And I'm using peoples accurately for people who are wondering, मैंने peoples क्यों बोला? That, कि हम लोग पहले रेगिस्तान में थे, फिर हम ऐसे आए, फिर ये हुआ, फिर वो हुआ. There are numerous communities where there is still Naxal presence. And if you listen to their folk songs like Pehle Aya Savera Fir Aya Andhera Re is tarah se. And you can sort of see the events that, I don't know, made the narrative of an entire community. कि हमारी जिंदगी यही है. I don't know.
Do you think, going on that tangent, do you think for us, let's say our generation, poetry could be a way of finding meaning? And by meaning, I mean a connection to culture. Is that what you're trying to say? Yeah.
Right. I'm saying for us, it would require more than ye wali na baat is very Instagram unpopular, and I will say it because I'm guilty of it as well. Because all I see is my experience and my family and friends and the world I occupy and the internet personality I inhabit. ठीक है? That constraint allows for great poetry. ठीक है? Because all I have to do is pay a little more attention, observe a little more than the average person, and I have a poem. ठीक है? But revivifying the past, saving it from whatever archaic language or people that you have to go specifically interview, it's trapped in, and bringing it back into your poems, into your songs. I think that can be a really effective way of getting back in touch with our culture. That's what I feel.
Definitely. Yeah.
That maybe there is substance in the folk songs or the strange tales that maybe our village relatives or people who are a bit more pastoral, nomadic, what they have to say. क्या पता उसके अंदर और substance so that maybe our city living allows us to not see.
Yeah. एक तो ये भी बात है ना कि it's a lot of these songs were not meant to be listened with your AirPods on when you're going to work in the car, right? They were there are all these layers that are associated with it, right? You listen to it in a particular time of the year with a certain type of people.
Right.
For example, with weddings, you have Banna Banni ke gaane, right?
Right.
It's not that you would listen to, it's not like you would blast that shit when you're working, but it's a very specific time, specific event with specific people. And now the context is set and that adds to the thing. Where are these contexts? I feel like those are missing.
I think you can ritualize your culture if you listen to these songs in non-context specific ways. I can give you a very small example of how to do that. There is a song in this, एक picture है गुलाल, उसके अंदर एक गाना है आरंभ. So Swanand Kirkare is a fantastic Bollywood lyricist, and what he's done is the lyrics are something like this: आरंभ है प्रचंड बोले मस्तकों के झुंड. I don't know what the first line is, but the second line means मस्तकों के झुंड is literally the horde of ये जो होता है ना मस्तिष्क that you see when you're standing in war, right? आज जंग की घड़ी तुम तो हार दो. Today is the time to fight, and so let us fight, right? I'm doing a bad translation. आन बान शान या हो कार का हो नाम इस धनुष के बाण तुम उतार दो. No matter what it is at stake, use this bow and arrow and put it to test. जिस कवि की कल्पना में जिंदगी हो प्रेम की गीत, उस कवि को आज तुम नकार दो. Any poet who feels like life is a romantic poem, you dismiss that motherfucker. मौत अंत है नहीं तो मौत से क्यों डरें, ये जाके आसमान में दहाड़ दो. Death is not the end, so why be afraid of it? Roar that out in the sky, right? So imagine like you're some Rajput soldier in the 18th century कहीं पे है राजस्थान में, और तुम्हारी फट रही है कि I'm not sure कि मैं ये कर भी पाऊंगा या नहीं भी कर पाऊंगा. ठीक है, जंग में जाना, you can see the enemy right there, and then the gorgeous conch shell strikes, the sound of war, and तुम्हारे पूरे रोमटे खड़े हो जाते हैं ऐसे, and you're ready for war. And so and if there is a bard in the army who says that, right, so that sets you up. It's the same as, bro, listen to my flow state playlist. I'm about to get into flow state. ये वाली मेरी playlist है उसकी. It is the same thing. But I'm wondering, maybe we can, because we don't have access to that culture or that past, we can vicariously experience that. Why not, right? We can access some of these more context specific folk songs even if we don't agree with them, क्योंकि हमारा chill करने का mood है, and be open to what that does to our psyche,
Love that poem, by the way. Love that. Right. I want a quick wah wah OP in the chat. Wah wah. Right. Where OP during live streams is our way of doing it. Wah wah is how the others would. So we're just combining that wah wah OP in the chat.
Wah wah OP. But bro, I will send you the lyrics. They're also written in the Roman script. Worth it. मतलब एक line,
do you think this also has something to do with the fact that okay, tell me if this is a accurate, fair thing to say. Most poetry is not meant to be read alone. It's usually with a group. You do it as part of some kind of setting. It's not just you reading these words on your phone. It's just you do it as some kind of. So of course you have Kavi Sameelans, but then you have the war thing, which is its context, and it's not just you. You also feel the power of the poetry because you have these people who are also feeling it.
Right. So if I have to use a general brushstroke anyway, all the poets would perform in big courts in front of the Rajas and the other court, right? Having an audience makes the poet a performer. Now, poetry around the world on Instagram is a tool for having better mental health. It is relief that you're not alone. I can think of pages like Artidote and a couple of others, right? Which do that, where you feel like you're sitting alone in your apartment or koi hai nahi, and then this poem comforts you that you're not alone because you know the world is too big. Whereas the sort of poems that you and I have been talking about are sort of poems that bind you together, the sort of poems that you listen to aag ke aas paas baith ke ki ye hamari kahani hai, that sort of thing. I'm thinking there is a way to do that. And many people may criticize the people who do that as maybe you're being too communal or you're being too religious or you are doing something outdated. But I think the merit will only be seen once these have been integrated. Because कब तक humanism or ये like these concepts that you derive from studying philosophy and technology, they're not able to sustain you, which is why I think actually this is the biggest thing. Poetry will give the sort of meaning to your life that I do not think a new technology or a new idea that you're bullish about would. Yeah, I'm bullish about AI or I'm bullish about singularity, and hence
Crypto.
it will give my life meaning. At least for me, it does not. I want to make that very clear.
Got it, bro. So also tell me this then. Okay, I wanna actually show you some stuff I've written.
Please.
And this is,
I would love to.
it might
bro.
surprise you to see what I'm about to show you, but I have started, since our conversations, whatever, started thinking of my tweets as poetry. Right?
Interesting.
In the sense that I'm not really thinking of rhyme, right? I feel like you would know this. It's one of the misconceptions, right? To say the least. People are like, yo, pichli line usse rhyme karni chahiye, we should do a skipping this thing.
Right.
But I think, to me, poetry, I think of it as narrative. So I'm going to show you a few. I haven't prepped these in advance, so I'll just show you some.
Please.
So for example, one thing I've started doing, I don't know how this happened, is instead of making, okay, let me just
I will have to zoom in next second. Huh.
Yeah, I'll zoom in. For example, even when I say this, right, which is our announcement post for this,
Huh.
I know there is a flow to this. Now, of course, I'm not consciously doing this. I am just typing this like this. It takes me like 10 seconds to type and 20 seconds to type, and it's out, right? So that is a part of that creation process. But
bro, can I quickly comment on this?
Yeah.
It is already ek minute upar jao. So you know why it is poetic? Because your mind's voice goes like, आज रात 11 बजे कवि सम्मेलन विनम्र कसाना जी के साथ. You see how it's split in 3 different parts? Like there are 3 different macro syllables, right? That's poem. That's a poem right there. It's the way your mind's voice reads it.
Yeah. And that is what I'm thinking, because I am now, like a Kavi Samelaan setting is very different, and a Twitter setting is very different, right? Which is the kind of setting you have is everything in your feed is fighting for attention in some ways. So the way I also see this kind of, let me not just show random tweets. Let me scroll to, like, even when I'm doing Discord invites, right, like this. But let me show you a few that are different topic. Speaking of flow.
But have you tried using rhymes deliberately?
I haven't, bro. I haven't.
Bro, I challenge you on this stream to make 5 or 7 tweets that convey the information that you want to convey, but with rhymes. See what that does.
Interesting. Yeah, bro. It's stuff like this.
There is a very trailing quality to this. It's like your voice is trailing off at the end.
Yeah.
So you are now a lyrical character. If anyone in the mood to send me free FNTs, here's my address. Avnuk.edh.
It's interesting, bro, because I've only noticed this shift because of two things, actually. I've noticed this shift happening to me. Number one, of course, speaking to you, seeing your poems. But number two, for me, was working with a copywriting coach.
Interesting.
And this copywriting coach, of course, they didn't teach me how to tweet, but the kind of frameworks that they had and all of this stuff, for the first 1 or 2 months, I was just understanding those frameworks. So they're like, hey, okay, this is the status quo. This is how you talk about it. Before saying, and it was more marketing stuff. It was like, for example, if you, before saying buy my product, that's the last thing, bro. You have to first start with what beliefs do people have.
Right.
You have to start with what is the status quo, and can you address that status quo so that people know that you're speaking their language. It was stuff like that. But then as like now today, I don't even think of those frameworks. I just do it. You and I as creators online, we are communicating all the time, way more than I would say the OG poets back in the day. We are not just communicating, we're hyper communicating in different ways, different people. Each post that we make gets more of an audience than an entire, Kavi Samelaan event would. So I feel like it's up to us to define these methods, these, formats, styles.
Yeah, एक चीज बताऊं. I think you will, if you've not seen this, you will enjoy this. I'm not a big fan because I never really liked the format myself, but as an experiment, this was very popular on Instagram when the first Instagram poets came around. Instagram पे जाके look up make blackout poetry. Do you know what blackout poetry is?
Oh, it's,
Bro,
is it you take a newspaper, you black out and certain words and you, it's a discovery emergence kind of process.
Ha. It is sort of like your typical Ouija board tarot card wali jo ek puri vibe hoti hai na. It's that where serendipity is the poem.
Yeah.
So I think this is a good theme for people. Whenever you have serendipity, कोई नया idea आया, कोई insight आया, epiphany आया, write that down. And by the nature of how we reveal an epiphany to other people, तेरे को पता है कोई idea है, हम ना ऐसा करेंगे, फिर ऐसा हो जाएगा, right? What we say is, look, I had an insight. We're going to do this action. This will be the outcome. It's divided in 3 parts, lyrical, narrative, on its own. So now that you think about it, I'm thinking about all the times we all use ups and downs in our speech to communicate in a rather poetic way.
True. Also, the thing with blackout poetry that I feel is at some level it's letting go, in the sense that I think one part of the creative process, whether you're a poet or anything else, is that sometimes we try to control too much what our outcome is going to be. And then if we don't see us getting that exact same outcome, we get disappointed. We're like, dude, like, fuck, I'm not doing it right. Or, aaj feel nahi aa rahi. But I think some amount of creative process requires letting go. And blackout poetry is one example, because it's like, okay, I don't want to put too many metaphors, but it's like poker where you are dealt a certain set of cards,
right?
And you have to play. And maybe in the next game it's different, but hey, this is this thing, and you just deal with it. And I think blackout poetry is one example of that. Yeah.
Can I also point a very specific tangent for all poets writing out, because I feel like ये बोलना जरूरी है. I think when Indians begin to write poems in English, based on the naturalists of the UK, जो सबसे ज़्यादा popular हैं हमारे NCERT की books के अंदर, ठीक है, many of us start to believe that the best thing to do is to make safe rhymes about inanimate objects such as plants, such as nature, such as the sun, ठीक है, because there is no skin in the game. You can go on and on about nature, and that can be a very navel-gazing project. I found real fucking poetry comes from your own experience. Do not tell me about how beautiful the trees were. Tell me about this itchy rash that you had on your leg while you were trying to imagine how beautiful the tree was, So वो उस sense के अंदर ना, if I have to like sort of give one dictum that I feel like I can give at this point, because I've not done enough poems, is write about the experience that you feel, and write about your world. Introduce your own terms, your own metaphors, no matter how weird they are. ठीक है? I wrote an entire poem about base paper, which is a thing people used to, when they're trying to roll many kinds of illegal substances, they will use a base paper as a base. And the number of objects that are appropriated to use that is insane. Insurance papers, right? A playing card, किसी का exam paper क्या क्या use होता है, right? Because it's
Yeah.
you have to. So writing about that was like, this is my experience. I've lived through this. I've seen people do this.
Yeah.
As opposed to today, I will sit at a desk with the trees outside, and there is nothing wrong with saying I'm feeling great, but it shouldn't stop there. So that's, I feel like, is the biggest misperception around poetry. The second is, of course, you believing that एक sentence को 3 लाइनों में chop कर दिया. That's all. Like, that's the all rupee core shit.
Yeah, 100%, bro. Agree with that very strongly. Also because I also think it's the safe way out if you're just talking about trees, bro. Nobody's
Yes.
gonna say like, bro, how dare you say that about trees? Versus you saying like, yo, the rash on my thigh, it elicits a very different response in the reader. And now they're like, yo,
Right.
like, firstly, you have my attention, but then it can go to disgust, it can go to shock, it can go to surprise. And most people don't want that.
Exactly, bro.
They don't want that. They're like, safe.
Yeah. Could you I have another poem that I wrote around women, right? So I'll tell you, when I gave myself this constraint, women, it was the toughest thing to do, because I can pontificate on my relationships and love, but to talk about women overall, the one with the biggest text, the evil of men.
Ye wala?
हाँ
Or this one?
हाँ
Okay, bro. Reading. Okay, we're gonna do a reading.
ठीक है. Should I go?
Yep.
The evil of men I know how to smell. It is old, it is familiar. But women bring pincers for nails, horns or ponytails. They bring the worst of hell. Only a fool gets burned and thinks it went well. तो ये जो poem है ना, this poem, I was surprised no women reached out like, hey, this is so bad, all of that. But this is my personal experience. कि यार, fuck, मैं कितना बाहर जा रहा हूँ. I'm going to write a poem about what I feel is the two different kinds of evil I see in men and women, because I'd been burned really badly by someone who did something very evil, something I could not understand. I was like, मैं naive हूँ, मेरे को पता नहीं है क्या हो गया. And that moment I was like, अच्छा ये theme भी चल रहा है. So I really try to encapsulate what it means like to have invisible foes in a way. और मेरी फट भी रही थी लिखते हुए. Like, a good barometer to know if you're outside your comfort zone, like if you're scared of publishing it, not because it sucks or you're not used to it, but because it's a subject matter that's gonna piss a lot of people off in your life.
Yeah.
I think especially because, look, with videos and images, the market is saturated. If you have words, make sure you stab people a little. It does not always have to be a good, ऐसे gift के ऊपर not बांध दें. Perfect.
Yeah.
It can and frequently should unsettle people.
Another thing I will add, this is a conversation I was having maybe with my wife, I don't remember. We're talking about how many feelings exist in the world. Right? What's that number? Is it a finite number? Is it an infinite number? Is it a small number? And I felt kind of sad, because I was like, yo, there's too many feelings in the world and I won't be able to feel all of them. Right?
Yeah.
And I think with poetry, most people want to go for the top ones. They want to go for the top 10 on that list. But there's hundreds and thousands and millions of feelings out there.
Bro, because we have 4 minutes left, please open one of the poems I sent you on WhatsApp. It is called "The Penultimate Love of My Life." We should read that together. It's a great poem.
Let's do it, bro.
It is gonna talk about a feeling that maybe a lot of us haven't experienced, but it will. I saw it on a very popular page, Lit Archives, but it's so damn good, and it's a very modern poem that I think everyone will enjoy, even if they haven't had a girlfriend or a boyfriend.
Got it. Just loading it up. Yeah, bro. Let's do it.
Yes, bro. This poem. You want to read it? Do you want to read the first page and I will read the second?
Okay, bro. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
I want to spend a lot, but not all of my years with you. We'll talk about kids, but make plans to travel. I will remember your eyes as green when they were grey. Our dogs will be named for now and mostly. Sex will be good, but next doors will sound better. There will be things. I will pick up your damp towel from the bed, and then I won't. I won't be as hot as I was when I wasn't yours, and your hairline, now so untrustworthy.
There's a second page. Read it as well.
When we pull up alongside a cattle car and hear the frightened lows, I will silently judge you for not immediately renouncing meat. You will bring me wine and notice how much I drink. The garden you plant and I plant is tunneled through by vowels. The vowels we speak aren't vows. But there's something holding me here for now, like your eyes, which I suppose are brown after all. Nice, bro. This is really good. This is really good.
Yeah,
Yeah, I like this, bro. This just
bro.
makes me
Have you
think.
felt a new feeling?
It is a new feeling. It is a new feeling. Let me articulate some part of it.
Please.
Might not be what you expect, but what I'm feeling is we started this Kavi Samelaan conversation, but there's something deeper here. There's something deeper here. There's more conversations to be had. There's more poems to be read. So, bro, we need to figure something out. Okay,
I'm game.
let's figure out some more streams. Let's figure out some new shows because, people in the chat, we haven't totally been ignoring you. It's just that we've been too engrossed. But it's crazy, bro. And Vinamra, the reason I'm also excited about this is you and I, we're internet creators, which is, dude, the reason I'm doing these live streams is because you did daily videos. And I was like, yo, if Vinamra can do it, I think I could do it. And now I think I can, right? So,
Bro, यार मतलब तुम मेरे को रुलाओगेगा seriously. I think मतलब I've often said this कि बहुत मजेदार stream थी, but you know, you decided to speak about something that no one will ever speak to me about ever. ठीक है? Which is this. I would love to do streams on poetry, songs, the creative. भाई यही करते हैं. ये vibe बहुत अच्छी जाएगी. I've never had as much fun. And we should definitely read more poems. In fact, we should try and read poems from different cultures and try to, talk about how we feed and all of that. Bro, hats off. I had a blast. I had a serious, बहुत बढ़िया blast.
me too, bro. Me too. Lot of comments, by the way. People are like, yo, the stream needs to be longer. Unfortunately, that's our constraint. We don't go longer than 71 minutes. People loved it, bro. People are really enjoying it. So what we will do is let's plan something. We will plan something to our audience. Thank you all for joining. Thank you all for reading, because if you had told me before today's stream that we're going to read a bunch of poetry and there's going to be a bunch of people interested in listening to it, I would be doubtful. Right?
Power of experiments, bro.
Yeah,
I
bro.
wouldn't have done this without you.
Power of experiments. So, Vinamra, bro, I'll see you on a different stream. See you somewhere else on the internet. Thank you, everybody.
Namaskar.
Namaskar.